They called him worthless, a lost cause, a ghost of a horse destined for nothing. No one saw past the brokenness, the ribs protruding like a cage around a dying spirit. But then, a young woman, with little more than a whisper and a prayer, stepped forward. She saw not what he was, but what he could be. What happened next wasn't just a rescue. It was a miracle that would defy every expectation and prove that sometimes. God's greatest blessings arrive in the most unexpected, fragile forms. Could a discarded creature truly hold the key to saving a dying dream? Before we begin this unforgettable story, would you mind sharing where you're from in the comments, and if stories of love, loyalty, and second chances move you? Please give this video a like and consider subscribing. Under the relentless, brassy gaze of the Texas sun, the annual Heartwood Livestock Fair pulsed with a rhythm as ancient as the land itself. Dust, fine as powdered gold, danced in the heat-shimmering air, kicked up by the restless hooves of cattle and the purposeful strides of buyers. The air thrummed with a cacophony of sounds, the sharp, rhythmic calls of auctioneers, the lowing of herds, the distant whinny of horses, and the ceaseless murmur of a crowd swelled with hope, ambition, and the harsh realities of the ranching life. Vendors hawked their wares from canvas stalls, the scent of sizzling brisket mingling with the earthy musk of livestock, creating a sensory tapestry uniquely Texan. Amidst this vibrant chaos, in a pen tucked away in the forgotten corner of the bustling equine section, stood a sight that drew pity from some, disdain from most, and utterly no serious consideration from any. It was a stallion, a creature meant to embody strength and wild grace. Yet this one was a ghost, his once pristine coat, a testament to the purity of his lineage, was now dull and matted, clinging to a skeletal frame where ribs protruded like the bars of a forgotten cage, his mane and tail, once flowing like spun moonlight, were tangled and brittle. But it was his eyes that truly told the tale of neglect, deep, mournful pools that held the quiet resignation of a spirit long broken, the dim reflection of a beauty eroded by hardship. He was a pure white horse, a magnificent specimen of what he once was, and a tragic shadow of what he might have been. No one spared him a second glance, or if they did, it was merely to scoff. A waste of good feed, one burly rancher grumbled, spitting tobacco juice onto the parched earth. Wouldn't even pull a plow, let alone win a race. Another chimed in with a cruel laugh. Probably here out of pity. Better off at the rendering plant. The white horse remained motionless, a silent testament to their harsh judgments. But then, a figure moved with quiet purpose through the throng, her movements almost imperceptible amidst the bustling bodies. This was Sarah, a young woman forged in the crucible of hard work and unwavering love for the land. At 24, she possessed a lithe, almost wiry build, honed by years of ranching. Her frame, though slender, was deceptively strong. Her movements fluid and economical. Her hair, the color of sun-ripened wheat, was typically pulled back in a practical, no-nonsense braid that reached past her shoulders. But a few rebellious strands often escaped to frame a face that was more determined than classically beautiful. Her eyes, the striking cerulean blue of a clear summer sky, held an almost uncanny depth, reflecting not just her thoughts, but a profound, almost spiritual connection to the world around her, especially its four-legged inhabitants. Sarah's demeanor was generally quiet, almost reserved among strangers, but among animals. She blossomed, her voice soft and melodic, her touch gentle yet firm. Life on her family's small, Struggling ranch had instilled in her a resilient spirit, a quiet tenacity born from facing adversity head-on. An early childhood illness that had kept her bedridden for months had, ironically, deepened her empathy and her observational skills, teaching her to look beyond superficial appearances. She wore faded denim jeans, a well-worn plaid shirt, and scuffed leather boots that had seen countless sunrises and sunsets. Slung over her shoulder was a small, well-used canvas bag, its contents meager but precious, the culmination of every hard-earned dollar she had managed to save. Sarah moved past the prized livestock, past the boisterous bidding wars, her gaze sweeping over each animal with an almost intuitive understanding. She was searching, though she wasn't entirely sure for what, her family's ranch. Whispering Pines was teetering on the brink of financial ruin, burdened by mounting debts. They desperately needed a miracle, a way to breathe new life into their fading fortunes. She lived there with her great-uncle, Joe Blackwood, a man who carried the weight of the Texas sun on his stooped shoulders. Joe, at 72, was a man carved from the rugged landscape itself, his face a roadmap of deep wrinkles, his hands gnarled and calloused from decades of working the land and horses. He was a man of few words, gruff on the surface, but beneath that weathered exterior lay a heart of gold and a quiet wisdom. A legendary rodeo champion and horse trainer in his youth. A devastating riding accident years ago had left him with a limp and, more painfully, had shattered his confidence in his ability to train championship horses, leaving him with a lingering bitterness about the sport, despite his outward gruffness. Joe had raised Sarah after her parents' untimely passing, teaching her not only the practicalities of ranching, but also the invaluable lessons of perseverance and the quiet power of belief. Sarah knew of his past glory, and she knew of his current struggles, sensing the silent despair that often settled over him as the debt collector's letters piled up. As Sarah approached the forgotten corner of the fairgrounds, her steps, usually quick and purposeful, slowed. Her gaze fell upon the gaunt white horse. Unlike the others, she didn't see weakness or worthlessness. She saw something else, a flicker of defiance in those mournful eyes, a spirit that, though dimmed, refused to be extinguished. It was a raw, undeniable spark of resilience. The horse, unmoving, seemed to accept its fate, its quiet resignation speaking volumes. A strange, almost magnetic pull drew Sarah closer to the pen. She leaned against the rough wooden fence, her hand extended slowly, cautiously, towards the majestic creature. "Hello there, boy," she murmured, her voice a soothing balm amidst the din. The horse barely lifted its head, its eyes, deep and knowing, meeting hers in that silent exchange. A profound understanding passed between them. Sarah saw not just sadness, but a buried longing, a desperate yearning to be seen, to be believed in. A booming voice cut through the quiet moment. "Well, look what we got here." It was Bert Granger, a thick-set, grizzled rancher in his late 50s, his face perpetually reddened from years in the sun, his voice loud and condescending. He stood beside her, a mocking smirk plastered across his face, his eyes lingering on the emaciated horse. "What's caught your eye, little lady? That bag of bones wouldn't fetch a dime for glue." Bert was a prominent figure in the local livestock community, known for his shrewd dealings and an almost cruel lack of empathy for animals that didn't meet his exacting standards of utility. He represented the very pragmatism that overlooked the true worth of a creature like this. Sarah turned to him, her blue eyes unwavering. "That's none of your concern, Mr. Granger." Her voice, though soft, carried an unexpected firmness that made Bert pause, ignoring his scoff. She reached out her hand again, slowly, deliberately. The white horse flinched at first, its muscles tensing, but then, sensing no threat, no harsh judgment, it tentatively stretched its nose towards her outstretched fingers. The touch was fleeting, a whisper of connection, but it was enough. Enough for Sarah to make her decision. When the auctioneer, a jovial but weary man named Carl Jenkins, whose voice had grown hoarse from hours of calling bids, finally announced the white horse. His tone lacked the usual gusto. He seemed almost apologetic. "All right, folks, next up we have, well, a young horse in need of some tender loving care. Perhaps someone out there can find a use for him." A ripple of quiet chuckles spread through the yard. Not a single hand went up. Heads shook dismissively. The very idea of bidding seemed ludicrous. Then, cutting through the stillness like a thunderclap, Sarah's clear voice rang out, "I'll take him." The declaration landed with startling force, drawing startled stares and incredulous laughter. Bert Granger barked, "You've got to be kidding. What are you going to do with that animal? He's nothing but trouble." Whispers and mocking glances followed Sarah as she strode directly to the auctioneer. Her chin was held high, her resolve unshakable. "What's the price?" she asked firmly. Carl Jenkins looked at her with genuine surprise, as though the idea of anyone wanting this horse was utterly incomprehensible. "Not much," he replied, shrugging. "Pay the minimum, and he's yours," without a moment's hesitation. Sarah counted out the crumpled bills from her canvas bag, her hands steady despite the laughter and murmurs surrounding her. "Sold," the auctioneer announced with evident relief, closing the deal with a resounding bang of his gavel, taking hold of the horse's lead rope. Sarah turned to him, her heart swelling with a fierce, protective love. She gently ran her hand along his soft muzzle. "From now on," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the fading din, "I'll call you Destiny. Don't you worry, boy. No one's going to reject you again." As they slowly walked away from the chaotic auction, the voices of skeptics trailed after them like shadows. "That girl has no idea what she's doing," one shouted. "She's going to regret it." Sarah didn't glance back. Walking beside Destiny, she felt a complex mix of uncertainty and profound determination swirling within her. She didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. She had seen something in this magnificent, broken creature that others hadn't, and she wasn't about to give up on their shared fate. She was bringing Destiny home, and the first step of their miraculous journey had just begun. The early weeks at Whispering Pines Ranch were a crucible, a relentless test of Sarah's unwavering resolve. The Texas sun, once a source of comfort, now seemed to beat down with an almost oppressive intensity, casting long, stark shadows across the parched earth. Every day began before dawn, the air still cool and crisp, carrying the faint scent of dew-kissed sagebrush. Sarah would rise, her muscles aching from the previous day's chores, and immediately make her way to Destiny's stall, the small stable. Usually a hub of quiet activity, felt unusually somber, mirroring the precarious state of their new resident. Destiny, the white horse, remained a poignant shadow of his potential. His frail frame seemed even more pronounced within the confines of the stall. His head often hung low, a picture of profound despair. Despite having access to fresh hay and water, he barely touched his meals, his body accustomed to scarcity, his spirit seemingly unwilling to accept the sudden abundance. It was as though hope itself was a foreign concept to him. something he had long since forgotten how to embrace. The financial strain on Whispering Pines was a constant, gnawing worry. Every cent counted, every expense was scrutinized. Sarah found herself cutting corners wherever possible, forgoing even small personal luxuries like a new pair of riding gloves or an extra coffee in town. Her days stretched into grueling marathons of labor, mending fences, tending to the small vegetable patch that sustained them, checking on the few remaining cattle and meticulously cleaning the stables. The effort left her bone-weary, often falling into bed just minutes after the last star emerged in the vast, inky sky. Yet, despite the exhaustion, her devotion to destiny never wavered. This parallel struggle, the ranch's battle for survival echoing destiny's own fight for life, forged an even deeper sense of purpose within her. She knew that saving Destiny wasn't just about the horse. It was about saving their home, their legacy, and perhaps even back Joe's lost spirit, Joe Blackwood. Sarah's great-uncle observed her quiet determination with the complexity of emotions. The lines on his face seemed to deepen with each passing day, etched by worry and the painful memories of his own past. He'd often sit on the worn wooden porch swing, silently watching Sarah go about her chores, his gaze distant, lost in thought. He would remember the thrill of the rodeo arena, the thunder of hooves, the roar of the crowd, and then the searing pain of his accident, the moment his world shifted, leaving him with a physical limp and a deeper, emotional scar. The very thought of training a horse, especially one as seemingly broken as Destiny, pricked at old wounds. However, as he saw Sarah's unyielding commitment, a flicker of his old passion began to stir. He started offering Sarah small, almost imperceptible pieces of advice, little nuggets of wisdom gleaned from his vast experience with horses. "Watch his ears, Sarah," he'd rasp, his voice rough with age and disuse. "They'll tell you more than his eyes ever will." Or, "A horse's fear isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the stillness." These were not grand pronouncements, but quiet observations that hinted at a deep, almost forgotten understanding. He began to teach her how to read a horse's subtle cues, to understand the language of a damaged spirit. He showed her how to gently check Destiny's legs for weakness, how to feel for muscle atrophy, and how to assess his hydration by the elasticity of his skin. This shared focus, this quiet mentorship, began to bridge the gap that years of unspoken regret had built between them. Sarah dedicated every spare moment to Destiny. She'd spend hours sitting patiently in his stall, a worn, tattered blanket draped over her shoulders in the cool morning air. She'd sing old folk songs her mother used to hum, her voice a soft, melodic hum that seemed to calm the anxious horse. She'd speak to him in low, soothing tones, telling him about the ranch, about the vast, open fields just beyond the stable walls, about the dreams she held for them both. "Easy, boy," she'd murmur, her hand gently stroking his dull, matted coat. "You're safe here. No one will ever hurt you again." She'd brush his coat with a soft, natural bristle brush, carefully removing the caked dust and burrs, untangling his mane and tail strand by painstaking strand. Initially, Destiny would flinch at her touch, his body tensing, his eyes wide with the residual fear. But Sarah never pushed, never forced. She understood that trust was a delicate bloom, requiring infinite patience and gentle cultivation. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, his body would begin to relax under her touch. The most challenging aspect was getting Destiny to eat. Sarah tried everything. She ground oats with molasses, attempting to tempt him with a sweeter aroma. She even tried adding a handful of fresh, tender clover she'd picked herself from the small, shaded patch near the creek. Nothing seemed to work. Then, Bak Joe suggested a traditional remedy he'd learned from his Native American friends years ago. A mixture of crushed dandelion roots, wild chamomile, and a hint of dried peppermint, all steeped in warm water. It calms the stomach, settles the spirit, he'd explained, his voice uncharacteristically soft. Sarah, desperate, followed his instructions precisely. She mixed the earthy-smelling concoction into Destiny's feed, a small, barely visible addition. To her astonishment, the next morning, Destiny had eaten a small portion of his hay, a tiny victory that sent a surge of hope through her. From that day forward, the progress, though still agonizingly slow, became tangible with each passing day. Destiny ate a little more, his gaunt frame slowly, subtly, beginning to fill out. The dullness in his eyes began to recede, replaced by a nascent curiosity, a flickering interest in the world around him. He started watching Sarah with a hesitant intrigue, his head lifting slightly as she approached. One afternoon, as she sat humming softly, he cautiously nudged her hand with his nose. A soft, almost imperceptible gesture that filled her heart to bursting. He would allow her to lean against his flank, feeling the slow, steady rhythm of his breathing, a silent testament to the fragile bond forming between them. The turning point came one cool morning. The air carried the scent of approaching rain, a welcome relief from the relentless heat. Sarah, as was her routine, approached Destiny's stall with a fresh bucket of hay and a new mixture of the herbal remedy. As she placed the bucket down, something shifted. Destiny, who usually remained slumped, his head low, slowly, deliberately, pushed himself to his feet. His legs, though still slender, held him with a newfound steadiness. He took a tentative step towards the bucket, then another, his movements more purposeful than Sarah had ever seen. He dipped his head, taking a deep, satisfying gulp of water, then began to eat the hay, his teeth grinding rhythmically, a sound of life returning. After he had eaten his fill, he turned his head, his deep, intelligent eyes locking onto Sarah's. Then, with a gesture that brought tears to her eyes, he gently nudged her arm with his nose, then licked her hand, a soft, warm touch that conveyed more gratitude than any words could express. In that single, profound moment, Sarah knew Destiny hadn't just eaten, he had accepted, he had chosen to fight, to live, to trust. Their journey was far from over, but this was the genesis, the reawakening. From the stable doorway, Bak Joe, who had quietly followed Sarah, witnessed the entire scene. A rare, genuine smile slowly spread across his weathered face, a silent acknowledgement of the miracle unfolding before his eyes. The white horse, once a symbol of brokenness, was now a beacon of hope. And in that hope, a piece of Joe's own shattered spirit began to mend, with the spring air warming the Texas plains, bringing with it the scent of blooming wildflowers and fresh possibility. That Destiny's physical transformation was remarkable. His once skeletal frame had filled out, muscles rippling subtly beneath his now lustrous white coat. His eyes, once vacant pools of despair, now held a bright, intelligent spark, often following Sarah's every movement with an almost puppy-like curiosity. He ate with relish, his hunger a testament to his renewed vitality. Yet, beneath this undeniable physical recovery lay a fragile, still mending spirit, the invisible scars of past trauma, the memories of harsh hands and whispered threats, lingered deep within him. This became painfully evident as Sarah began the next phase of his training, introducing him to obstacles, to the very concept of jumping. Their training ground was a small, grassy paddock behind the main stable, a place where the morning sun cast long, forgiving shadows. Sarah started with the simplest of exercises, leading Destiny over low poles laid flat on the ground. Destiny, surprisingly eager to please, would step over them with careful precision, his movements growing more fluid with each repetition. But the moment Sarah introduced anything resembling a true obstacle, even a single, low crossrail, a deep-seated fear would seize him, his muscles would tense, his head would snap up, eyes wide with a familiar terror, and he would plant his feet, refusing to move forward. No amount of gentle coaxing, no soft whispers, could budge him. It was a stark reminder that physical healing was only half the battle. The emotional wounds ran far deeper. Adding to Sarah's mounting stress was the increasingly dire financial situation of Whispering Pines. The ranch's debts, like a relentless tumbleweed, grew larger and more menacing with each passing week. The letters from the bank were no longer just reminders. They were thinly veiled threats of foreclosure. This looming crisis was personified by Silas Thorne, a man who moved with the predatory grace of a coyote, his sharp, angular features often twisted into a sneer. Silas, in his early 60s, still carried himself with the swagger of a man who believed he owned the world, though his once dark hair was now streaked heavily with gray, and his eyes, cold and calculating as a rattlesnake's, betrayed a deep-seated bitterness. He was notorious in the Texas racing circuit, not just for his past prowess as a jockey, but for the dark cloud of suspicion that had ultimately led to his banishment from professional racing years ago, due to allegations of race fixing. He was a ruthless loan shark, preying on desperate ranchers, and his current target was Whispering Pines. He had heard whispers of Sarah's miracle horse, the pure white stallion, and a wicked glint of greed had entered his eyes. Silas and Back Joe shared a bitter history, a rivalry born from their younger days on the track, a rivalry that Silas had never truly forgotten or forgiven. He saw an opportunity not just to collect a debt, but to finally humble Joe Blackwood and perhaps even acquire Destiny for his own nefarious purposes. His visits to the ranch became more frequent, his demands more aggressive, his presence casting a dark shadow over their already struggling lives. "Tick-tock, Joe," he'd purr, leaning against the fence with a cruel smile. "That little white pony ain't gonna save you from the bank." Despite the escalating pressure, Sarah refused to be deterred by Destiny's fear or Silas's threats. She drew strength from Back Joe's quiet wisdom, his old lessons about patience and understanding. "You can't force a horse, Sarah," he'd often say, his voice low but firm. "You got to make him believe it's his idea. A broken spirit needs more than just a firm hand. It needs a trusting heart." Sarah spent countless hours simply being with Destiny, sitting in the paddock, reading aloud from an old book, or simply observing him. She learned to anticipate his subtle cues, the slight twitch of an ear, the almost imperceptible tensing of a muscle. Long before the fear took hold, she wouldn't push him. Instead, she started a new approach. She'd set up a single, very low pole, barely an inch off the ground. When Destiny refused, she wouldn't scold him. Instead, she'd lead him around it, allowing him to examine it, to sniff it, to understand that it posed no threat. Then she'd simply walk over it herself, slowly, deliberately, showing him by example. It was a painstaking process, demanding reserves of patience Sarah hadn't known she possessed. She began to incorporate playful elements into their training. She'd bring out a large, brightly colored ball for Destiny to nudge with his nose, celebrating every small interaction. She'd set up simple mazes of barrels, guiding him through them with soft words and gentle touches, slowly, cautiously. Destiny began to overcome his deep-seated anxieties. The rigid tension in his body lessened. The wild fear in his eyes began to soften, replaced by a tentative willingness to try. Each successful step, no matter how small, was met with exaggerated praise from Sarah. A hug around his neck, a handful of his favorite sweet oats. This wasn't just physical training, it was spiritual therapy. She was rebuilding not just his muscles, but his shattered confidence, brick by painstaking brick. One crisp afternoon, with the sun casting long, golden shadows across the paddock, Sarah decided to introduce a slightly higher obstacle, a low jump, perhaps a foot off the ground. Destiny, sensing the shift, tensed immediately, his eyes darting to the offending rail. Sarah, feeling the familiar fear emanating from him, didn't force the issue. Instead, she dismounted and walked beside him, her hand resting firmly on his neck. "Hey, boy," she began, her voice soft but filled with emotion. "I know you're scared, but we can do this, you and me. We're a team. This ranch, our home, it needs us. Back Joe needs us. You're our hope, destiny, our only hope." She spoke of the mounting debts, of Silas's looming threats, of the desperation that gnawed at their very existence. She poured her heart out, sharing the weight of her burden, believing that somehow this magnificent creature understood. She then led him to the jump. Not directly over it, but alongside it, allowing him to familiarize himself with its presence. She walked back and forth, building his confidence, showing him it was merely wood and air. Then, with a deep breath, Sarah led him up to the jump again, this time standing slightly ahead, still holding his lead. She kept her gaze fixed on the obstacle, willing him forward with her entire being. Destiny hesitated, his legs trembling, his ears twitching nervously. The fear was palpable, but then, as if something within him shifted, as if he understood the unspoken plea in Sarah's words, a remarkable transformation occurred. With a powerful surge, he launched himself forward. It wasn't graceful, not yet, but it was a leap of raw, untamed courage. He cleared the obstacle, his hooves thudding softly on the other side. Sarah let out a joyous cry, a triumphant sound that echoed across the quiet fields. She threw her arms around Destiny's neck, burying her face in his white mane, tears of relief and overwhelming happiness streaming down her cheeks. "You did it, boy," she sobbed. "You did it, Destiny." Breathing heavily, nudged her gently with his head, as if sharing in her triumph. From the stable porch, back Joe, who had been watching in silence, a worn hat pulled low over his eyes, slowly pushed himself to his feet. A profound, almost beatific smile spread across his weathered face. The sight of Destiny, his white coat gleaming under the setting sun, making that leap of faith, had ignited something deep within him, in his eyes, the flickering ember of hope, long dulled by cynicism and regret, now blazed into a vibrant flame, the belief in what a horse, truly understood and loved, could achieve, had been miraculously rekindled. The news of Sarah and her remarkable white horse, Destiny, rippled through the sprawling ranches and small towns of West Texas like a prairie fire, whispers, tinged with a mix of awe and skepticism, traveled on the wind, spreading tales of the ghost horse rescued from the auction block and the young woman who saw past its brokenness. These stories, growing with each telling, eventually reached the ears of Silas Thorne. His cold, calculating mind, already consumed by the impending foreclosure of Whispering Pines, saw not a miracle, but a new opportunity for personal gain and, more importantly, for public humiliation of Joe Blackwood. The annual West Texas Equestrian Championship was the region's most prestigious event, a grand spectacle drawing riders from across the state. Its gleaming trophy and substantial cash prize represented not just prestige, but a lifeline for Whispering Pines. Sarah knew this was their only chance. She immediately registered Destiny, her heart a tangled knot of hope and trepidation. The stakes were impossibly high. Silas, predictably, was also registered. He rode a magnificent bay stallion named Thunderbolt, a horse of impeccable pedigree and formidable power, trained by the most expensive professionals. Thunderbolt was a picture of brute strength and polished performance, a stark contrast to Destiny's humble origins. Silas, in his usual dark, custom-made riding attire, exuded an air of arrogant confidence. He frequented the pre-event warm-up areas, his sneering comments cutting through the air. Still riding that glue factory reject, Sarah he'd jeer, his voice laced with venom. That white nag will be a joke out there. Shame to waste good money on a lost cause. He even went so far as to subtly interfere with Sarah's practice jumps, accidentally blocking her path or making loud, distracting noises near Destiny, attempting to unnerve the sensitive horse. He'd spread rumors about Destiny's inherent weakness and Sarah's naivete, but back Joe, a seasoned veteran of such psychological warfare, was always a step ahead. He'd station himself strategically, his sharp eyes missing nothing. He offered Sarah quiet words of encouragement, reminding her of Destiny's spirit and their shared bond. More practically, he would calmly intervene when Silas attempted his dirty tricks, his presence alone a deterrent. Once, when Silas deliberately rode Thunderbolt too close to Destiny, making him shy violently, Bak Joe stepped forward, his eyes, usually kind, now flinty with resolve. "Careful, Silas," he'd said, his voice low but carrying an undeniable steel. "Some horses have more heart in their little toe than yours does in its whole body, and some men ain't fit to be around either." Silas, remembering Joe's reputation from the old days, backed off. Though his glare promised retribution, the day of the championship dawned clear and bright. The Texas sky a brilliant canvas of azure. The grand arena, a sprawling complex of polished wood and gleaming metal, buzzed with an electric energy. Grandstands packed with spectators, a vibrant mosaic of cowboy hats, dresses, and cheering children, rose steeply on all sides. The scent of fresh hay mingled with popcorn and the faint, sweet smell of liniment. Riders, impeccably dressed in crisp white breeches and tailored coats, moved with an almost regal air, their horses gleaming, muscled, and clearly expensive, prancing with restless anticipation. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs, a drumbeat of anticipation and sheer terror. This was it. Everything rode on this moment. She meticulously groomed Destiny, brushing his now snowy white coat until it shimmered under the arena lights, an ethereal vision. She braided his mane with meticulous care, the intricate weave a testament to her quiet dedication. As she adjusted his saddle, a well-worn piece of leather that felt like an extension of herself, she whispered, "Ready, boy. This is for all of us." Destiny responded with a soft nicker, his ears pricked forward, his intelligent eyes fixed on hers, a silent promise of partnership. When it was their turn, a ripple of murmuring swept through the crowd. Many recognized the discarded white horse from the local lore, their faces a mixture of curious skepticism and thinly veiled pity. "Isn't that the nag from the fair?" A woman whispered loudly. "What's she thinking, bringing it here?" Sarah ignored them, her focus absolute. She mounted Destiny, her movements fluid and practiced, a testament to months of tireless training. Destiny, sensing the immense energy of the bustling arena, shifted restlessly, his muscles coiling, snorting at the unfamiliar sounds. Sarah leaned down, her voice a calm anchor in the storm of his nerves. "Easy now, my moonbeam," she murmured, stroking his neck. "We're in this together, just you and me." Destiny slowly relaxed, drawing strength from her unwavering composure as they entered the arena. The crowd hushed, a collective intake of breath. The course was a demanding sequence of jumps, oxers, verticals, and combinations, each higher and more intricate than those they'd practiced. Sarah took a steadying breath, adjusted her reins, and gave Destiny the subtle signal. He started with a measured trot, a picture of contained power, transitioning effortlessly into a flowing canter. The first obstacle, a towering vertical, loomed large. Destiny hesitated for a split second, a flicker of old fear in his eyes, but Sarah's hands were steady, her gaze firm, her body a seamless extension of his. With a powerful, almost silent leap, he soared over it, clearing the bar with inches to spare. A gasp, then scattered applause, broke the silence. Each jump was a testament to their arduous work, a display of synchronicity that defied Destiny's past and Sarah's inexperience. They moved as one, a dance of power and grace, the complex triple combination, a notorious challenge on the course, was met with a surge of raw determination from Destiny. He cleared it with a powerful push off his hindquarters, his white form momentarily suspended in the air like a magnificent, airborne sculpture. The crowd, initially skeptical, was now enthralled, leaning forward, holding its breath with every leap. Their performance wasn't flawless, a slight brush against a pole here, a moment of hesitation there, but their bond, their undeniable trust in each other, was palpable, radiating from them like a tangible force. As they galloped towards the final jump, the crowd erupted. Destiny cleared it with a burst of breathtaking power. Landing gracefully on the other side, Sarah leaned down, wrapping her arms around his powerful neck, her heart overflowing with a mixture of relief, pride, and overwhelming gratitude. The announcer's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. "And a fantastic round for Sarah Jenkins and Destiny, a truly inspiring performance." The arena exploded in thunderous applause. Not everyone understood the full depth of their journey, but everyone recognized the dedication, the sheer heart, that had gone into that performance. Destiny, still breathing heavily, stood tall, his white coat gleaming under the arena lights, no longer the discarded horse, but a champion in the eyes of all who watched. In the midst of the cheering, Sarah looked towards the judges' stand, then scanned the faces in the crowd. Her eyes landed on Silas Thorne, standing in a corner, his face a mask of disbelief, his eyes burning with unconcealed fury. His expression was a bitter cocktail of anger and utter defeat. He hadn't just lost. He'd been publicly shamed by the very horse he had so cruelly dismissed. Sarah smiled. A private, triumphant gesture, the gleaming gold trophy, the promise of rescuing Whispering Pines, was within their grasp. The victory at the West Texas Equestrian Championship cast a golden glow over Whispering Pines Ranch, the prize money, a substantial sum that shimmered with the promise of a secure future, was swiftly put to use. Back Joe. his stoic face softened by an unfamiliar peace, paid off every last cent of the ranch's crushing debt. The ominous letters from the bank ceased arriving, replaced by the quiet hum of an electric pump restoring life to their old well. The threat of Silas Thorne's cruel repossession faded like a bad dream. The ranch, once teetering on the brink of despair, now hummed with renewed purpose, its fields vibrant, its fences sturdy, a testament to the power of unwavering hope. Sarah and Destiny, the unlikely champions, became a local legend, their story whispered with reverence in every diner and general store across the county. With the immediate crisis averted, Sarah, invigorated by their success and guided by Bach Joe's rekindled spirit, began to dream bigger. Their journey with Destiny had taught her that true healing wasn't just about physical recovery, but about mending shattered spirits. She decided that their triumph wasn't an endpoint, but a beginning. Sarah, now a celebrated rider, chose to embrace a new role, that of a healer and a teacher, alongside Bach Joe, whose eyes now held the familiar twinkle of his younger, rodeo glory days. She established the Whispering Pines Equine Therapy Center. It was a humble beginning, a few repurposed stalls and a small outdoor arena, but its mission was grand, to offer solace and healing to horses that, like Destiny, had been abandoned, abused, or simply misunderstood. They believed that just as Destiny had found his purpose, other broken spirits could too. This new venture, however, did not escape the notice of Silas Thorne. Enraged by his public humiliation and unable to stomach Sarah's rising prominence, he sought to undermine her success. Silas, still seething, launched a series of legal attacks, baseless accusations claiming that Destiny was inherently sick or unfit to compete, even alleging that Sarah had somehow doctored the horse. He tried to have Destiny's championship revoked, filing formal complaints with the equestrian associations, spreading malicious rumors through his network. He even hired a slick, sharp-suited lawyer from Houston, Mr. Shenchet Reginald Sterling, a man whose reputation for ruthless litigation was as polished as his expensive shoes. Sterling, in his mid-50s, was impeccably dressed, always wore a subtly expensive cologne, and spoke with an educated drawl that masked a razor-sharp mind. He saw Silas as an easy payday and Sarah as a naive country girl. But Sarah and Bach Joe were prepared. They had meticulously documented Destiny's entire recovery, veterinary records detailing his initial deplorable state, daily logs of his food intake and exercise, photographs showcasing his gradual transformation, and countless testimonies from local vets and well-respected horse trainers who had witnessed his remarkable comeback. Bach Joe, drawing upon his own deep knowledge of horse medicine and his network of old rodeo friends, even managed to unearth damning evidence of Silas's own past misconduct in the racing world, quietly passing it to the legal team Sarah and Bach Joe had scraped together. A kindly, retired local judge named Judge Caldwell who volunteered his time. Judge Caldwell, a man with a booming laugh and a kind, wrinkled face, was known for his integrity and his love for the local community. Silas's legal efforts crumbled ignominiously. His attempts to paint Destiny as diseased were dismissed outright as baseless and vindictive. Further cementing Sarah and Destiny's heroic status in the public eye, Destiny settled into a life of serene contentment at Whispering Pines. He no longer competed, but his days were filled with purpose. He spent his mornings grazing in the sun-drenched pastures, his white coat shimmering like spun silver against the emerald green. In the afternoons, he would trot with surprising vigor in the large paddock, his movements still graceful, his spirit still vibrant. But perhaps his greatest joy came from the children, local families, drawn by the legend of the Moonlight Horse, would often visit the therapy center. Destiny became its gentle, majestic ambassador. He would patiently allow small hands to stroke his soft muzzle, his deep, intelligent eyes reflecting their wonder. Sarah would often sit beside him, her voice soft and resonant, recounting their story. She taught the children about the power of belief, how to see potential where others saw only flaws. She taught them about patience, showing them how healing takes time and unwavering commitment. And most importantly, she taught them about kindness, demonstrating how a gentle touch and an open heart could mend even the deepest wounds. Destiny wasn't just a champion. He was a living symbol of hope, a testament to the transformative power of love. Years folded into decades, each one deepening the roots of whispering pines. Sarah, now a woman in her late 40s, had indeed become a renowned horse trainer and therapist, her reputation extending far beyond the borders of Texas. Her golden hair was now streaked with silver, her face softened by time, but her cerulean eyes still held that same unwavering determination, that same profound empathy. She oversaw a thriving therapy center, a haven for both horses and humans seeking solace. Back Joe, well into his 90s, still held court on the porch swing, his gruff exterior softened by the years, his eyes twinkling with quiet pride as he watched the life he had helped build flourish. He often told stories of Destiny and Sarah, his voice filled with an almost mythological reverence. One peaceful evening, as the Texas sky blazed with the fiery hues of a retreating sunset, melting into the soft, comforting embrace of a full moon, Sarah sat on the worn wooden bench beside Destiny. He was old now, his white coat softer than ever, his movements slower, but his spirit remained as luminous as the moonlight that bathed the pasture. He rested his magnificent head gently on her lap, his deep, intelligent eyes, though clouded with age, still held the wisdom of their shared journey. Sarah gently stroked his silken mane, a lifetime of memories flooding her heart. She remembered the auction, the mockery, the doubt, the arduous days of his recovery, the triumphant leaps in the arena, the quiet battles against Silas. She remembered the sheer, overwhelming love that had guided them through it all. "My beautiful moonbeam," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't even know if I saved you, or if it was the other way around." Destiny let out a soft, contented sigh, as if in agreement. The ranch, once a precarious homestead burdened by debt, had transformed into a sanctuary, a beacon of hope where broken dreams were mended and spirits, both equine and human, found their true north. The story of Destiny, the white horse of whispering pines, and the courageous girl, Sarah, became more than just a local legend. It blossomed into a timeless tale, passed down through generations, inspiring countless souls to never give up, to seek the hidden potential in all beings, and to believe in the enduring power of kindness, resilience, and the truly magical, impossible things. As we close the final chapter of Destiny and Sarah's remarkable tale, we're left not just with the echoes of triumphant cheers, but with a profound whisper from the very heart of life itself. Their journey, a testament to unwavering belief and the courage to see beyond brokenness, isn't merely a story of a girl and her horse. It's a vivid illustration of the miracles that unfold when faith takes the reins. In a world quick to dismiss what seems weak, to discard what appears worthless, Sarah saw potential. She didn't just see a gaunt, abandoned horse, she saw a creature of inherent value, a soul waiting to be nurtured, and in that act of seeing, of believing, she didn't just transform destiny, she transformed her own world and touched countless others. This is the everyday miracle that quietly unfolds around us. The power to look past the surface, to find the hidden spark in others, and in ourselves, even when life feels utterly overwhelming. Perhaps this tale reminds us that some miracles aren't a sudden parting of the seas, but the slow, patient unfolding of a purpose placed within us by a higher power. It's the quiet strength to keep going when the odds are stacked against you. The gentle hand offered to someone in need. The unwavering conviction that every life, every soul, holds a divine spark of worth. It's a reminder that even when all seems lost, there's a guiding hand, a benevolent force, ready to lift us up if we just choose to believe. Destiny's triumph wasn't just about winning a race, it was about reclaiming a life, a purpose, a spirit that truly shone like the moonlight he was named for. This story, woven from courage and compassion, teaches us that with patience, hard work, and a heart full of love, the impossible becomes possible. It teaches us that compassion is a profound form of strength, and that extending grace to others often leads to the most extraordinary breakthroughs. Every step Destiny took, every hurdle he cleared, was not just a physical feat, but a spiritual one, a triumph of spirit over despair, a testament to what God can do through us when we open our hearts to His purpose. What part of Destiny and Sarah's journey resonated most deeply with you? Did it remind you of a time when you found strength in unexpected places, or saw a miracle unfold in your own life? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please share this story with someone who needs a reminder of hope. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales, and give us a like if this story touched your heart. May God bless you, your loved ones, and may His light guide your path. If you believe in the power of hope and the grace of miracles, share your agreement by typing Amen.